Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davs. It's been a week. It's hard to believe it's been a week since the NFL draft, but yet here we are. We're going to talk about first-round pick Derrick Harmon tonight, but first, let's introduce the cast and characters here. Dave, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going, like you say, I can't believe it's been a week. The offseason rolls on. We are now in the month of OTAs. We are now, less than two months, not full months, but the name of months away from training camp. You get a little bit closer, and I'll just set my guy Bryan up very much and say it's gonna.
It's gonna be me. I was waiting all day, Dave. My family kept on asking me, "Did Dave send you the meme yet?" And no, I did not.
No, that's because you sent me 30 of them 31 of them last year
for the entire month.
So yes, you did. I hit you up with May the 4th, but yeah, that was
okay.
A little thing that we had back and forth. But no, I didn't want to unleash that again. So
it's Timberlake Day, baby.
Well, Bryan, welcome to the show. How's it going?
And I'm glad to be here. You know, it's funny. We are 51 weeks away from being even busier than we were last week because the Steelers might have 10 or 11 picks, and it's going to be in Pittsburgh.
Oh my gosh, you're talking about next year's draft. That's incredible.
He said 51 weeks. I knew what he was going for.
I was recording my Let's Ride podcast for tomorrow, and I talked about how it's hard to believe that it is May and that, you only have 2 full months until they're back in training camp. Like it's middle to end July when they're back at St. Vincent College, and it starts all over again. And here we go. So this offseason is always short. It's very brief. We know the May 14th is going to be the scheduled release date. I was shocked the NFL announced that during the draft. They normally drag that on and all this stuff, but still we know about that. And so we'll have our typical schedule release podcast here. And the Steelers preview will flex to Wednesday, but still let's talk about the news. Dave, I know you wrote this article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com today. I wanted to give you an opportunity. I felt like you had a little pent up, I don't know if aggression was the right word, but on Twitter, you're like, there's a lot of people that are getting this wrong.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll give Dave the soapbox early and let him explain how the compensatory picks that the Steelers are projected are just projections. They are not set in stone. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, the picks aren't set. It's not like, the Steelers, look, they've got it all set up. They're going to get a 3rd, a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th. No. They're projected. I'm going to have even more of a breakdown at Steel Curtain Network. I'm going to go through player by player and say what could happen for them to move up, what would happen for them to move down, things of that nature. That is coming. Hopefully tomorrow. We'll see. It's a long process. I got to try to get that one together. But that's why I split it up into 2 different things to explain what is locked in is the players that count. The players that count in the formula are now locked in. Now, exactly how they count is going to be biggest factor, their salary, which we know what that is, with some exceptions. Because if you hit incentives that'll get added to your salary at the end of the year, like a Russell Wilson could.
Najee Harris as well.
Yep, that's another one. That could bump them up. It's also about your snaps played. So the players who could count are set, unless you sign J.K. Dobbins because he had the rare unrestricted free agent tender thrown at him. So that way, if he signs, they did it with Elijah Moore as well, but he still signed somewhere else anyway. So that could help Cleveland along the way. But unless you sign them, it's locked in. And there's been some debate whether or not if a player gets cut, if they still count. From everything that we've seen, it still does. They don't have that date that if they were cut by week 10, like it was back with the Dante Moncrief thing. That one's kind of that one's no longer outlined in the CBA. So it's assumed that even if you cut the player, that they still count. That's the way Over the Cap does it. They are the main experts on this. They have it down better than anybody. But still, even just trying to decipher what they have can really be a pretty big task. But the Steelers actually, they end up with a -6 as of right now. from over the cap. You can only get 4, but they're at -6, and all of them are 6th round or better. So even if something happens to 2 of those guys, you still should be looking at 4 picks next year. The only question is, what round will they be?
All right. Brian, any thoughts on that? Or I was going to cue you up with another question if you don't have any thoughts.
We want Russell Wilson to get all his incentives, because that could be, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, that could be as high as a 3 for Russell Wilson.
I really have to look at his incentives if it could get him that high. I can tell you this, a little preview about what it'll show. If Justin Fields goes over 90% of the snaps, he could move up into a 3rd.
Well, Dan Moore's a 3rd, isn't he?
But if he drops below maybe 50% of their snaps, he's going to fall down to a 4th.
And the Jets just had a quarterback retire from, I don't know whether he was a draft pick last year.
Last year, yes.
Jordan Travis, I think is his name. Is that correct?
He was from Florida State. I knew that.
Yeah, so now that helps the whole Justin Fields experience here too. And they didn't draft anybody. They're expecting to run with Justin Fields. So unless he gets hurt, knock, it should go. He should have the majority of the snaps there.
Let's just say this. He's not, I don't think it's possible he's close enough to even fall to a 5th. Chances are he's going to be a 4th with maybe a 3rd.
And then when you look at the fact now, Jackson Dart is it just depends how quickly he grows into it and how poorly Russell Wilson gets off to a start. But they do have a lot of help on defense there. They do have a team that has some players. If they get good quarterback play, they're going to be okay. But they're still in a very tough division.
For sure. Now, Brian, I wanted to ask you about a signing the Steelers made official today on Thursday, and that is Robert Woods. He's the slot receiver that is going to kind of take over Van Jefferson's role from last year. We just hope he's a little bit better than Van Jefferson. What's your takeaway on that signing?
Why not is my number one takeaway. Now, I saw somebody on either Facebook or Twitter or wherever, just when they reposted the signing of Robert Woods and said, my team is an absolute joke. And I'm like, are you serious? This really makes that quarterback room better. They have a guy. Now, do they treat that 3rd receiver awesome? I mean, the last few 3rd receivers have not stuck. Those veteran signings have not stuck. However, the thing I like about it is if he's healthy, he can help out, and you can't cover everybody. You can't cover Metcalf, double cover Metcalf, and not expect guys like George Pickens and Robert Woods not to beat you, and especially a speedster like Calvin Austin. No, you've got a lot in that that wide receiver room right now. Are there going to be enough balls to go around? Probably not. So when you look at the numbers, don't get really discouraged if he doesn't have a whole heck of a lot of catches, but if they're quality catches and he gets in the end zone a couple times, then it works. So, I really like having those guys in the building. Robert Woods, you can't lose on a 1-year, $2 million contract. You really can't.
Dave, what's your takeaway on that signing?
To me, Robert Woods is what I call Roman Wilson insurance. You can't bank on Roman Wilson. He didn't play last year. He played 15 snaps in one game, didn't have a target, couldn't get on the moving train for one reason or another. If Roman Wilson is good and Roman Wilson is great, fantastic for the Steelers. But if he doesn't work out, you at least have a veteran that's there around at camp and everything else that could fill in with that job. That's the way I look at it. Just like you didn't want to bank on Corey Trice last year being the guy for the Steelers. You're even at that was just a 7th round pick. You can't really say, is our slot guy going to be Roman Wilson? You can't bank on it. So to me, this is just giving more options in case something like that doesn't work out. That's what I look at it as.
Yeah, I agree. And Honestly, if they just use him as a blocker, he is a big body guy.
Yeah.
He's older. So if you're not asking him to have a ton of catches or receptions, just go and block. Do your job.
But he still has to make the roster too.
That's true. That is true. And for those that are curious, and we were talking about the compensatory formula, any player that is signed as a free agent now does not count unless they've had that tender.
It's only J.K. Dobbins. He's the only one out there that's left.
He's the only one. So unless everyone but J.K. Dobbins, they can sign, and you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, it's going to mess up the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. No, it's not. So don't worry about that. Like Dave said earlier, that is locked in. All right, we're going to take an early break because I don't want to stop midway through our discussion on this NFL draft and going into specifically Derrick Harmon. So for those out there watching live, we're not going anywhere. For those that are listening, we'll be right back after this break. All right, folks, we're back. Thank you all for being patient. We want to talk about the NFL draft, and I want to go to Brian first here because, Dave and I were on the day 3 roundtable, and we got to, we were both exhausted, but we've got to kind of see, this is what the draft looks like in its entirety. Like, we took a global perspective of all 7 rounds. We haven't heard Brian's take yet. I have heard it on like bad language and stuff like that. But Brian, I wanted to give you the floor and let you give your thoughts on the whole 3-day process and what your thoughts were on the draft.
Well, and I want to thank you, Jeff. You're the one that listens to bad language. I appreciate that. I'm proud of that show. So let's go ahead and talk about this thing as a whole. It was an opportunity for the Steelers to really, they could have gone out and got a little crazy and did the reach thing. They could have gone around and did some, pick some guys that were more names than anything. But what they did, they stuck for the most part. I didn't look at the percentages, but if you visited, you had a much better chance of becoming a Pittsburgh Steelers than you didn't. And I know Black was one of them. There was a few guys, I believe both Sawyer and Howard were there, but they filled out the card without going for need in every spot. A lot of people were disappointed when they saw Jack Sawyer go in the 4th round and thought it was a joke because they have so much at edge rusher. But when you look at it, what happens if something happens? We saw what happened last year when you were starting Jeremiah Moon in that spot at edge rusher because you had guys go down just like that when Herbig went down. And you had the fact that 56, Highsmith was already down. So when that happens, you're stuck with Watt and Moon, and that's it. And you didn't even have that much to help you out. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I had heard that they even put out a phone call to Marcus Golden last year who said, "No, guys, I'm retired." They were in such a bad spot. So, and when you look at the fact that Herbig's, I don't know if he is an every down guy because of his size. I know he's a value. I think he's a better situational edge rusher. You don't want to lose him. And in fact, I'm paying tribute to the guy. I'm wearing his jersey. Love Herbig, but I love the fact that Sawyer reminds me more of a body like Highsmith. So when you got a surprise there, that was great. But the people that were surprised and didn't like it, that were mad that they didn't go with Shadur, you should be happy when you saw the man picking up Louis Vuitton bags full of money and dancing and rapping around. When it all becomes about his brand and not the team. Sawyer is a team guy. When I saw Sawyer, some people didn't like it. But when I saw him do the old Under Armour, we must protect our house type of thing, when the flag was being planted in Ohio State's horseshoe by Michigan, and when he's grabbing it and throwing it away, I kind of like that. I kind of like that style of player. And so when I'm looking at everything here, when I'm looking at the Johnson pick, when I'm looking at them doubling up at defensive tackle, but getting 2 different types of plays there. And I see Montravius Adams waved goodbye to. I see where the team looked at not just their needs, but looked towards the future as well, and is setting this team up for the future. And I love it. I really like everything that this team did in this draft. I saw, I don't want to give the guy any publicity because I give this guy enough. And his nickname is something to do with a horse, but he's more of a donkey. When he gave the Dante Kent pick an F. How do you give a 7th round pick an F? I just don't understand that whatsoever. Hey, last time this team picked a kick returner, a punt returner out of Central Michigan, that worked out well until he melted down 10 years later. All right, I'm done.
All right. So, Dave, since the dust is settled, has anything changed as your opinion about the draft class as a whole?
No, like I said, I like where they went. I like when they did it. I like who they got at the positions they got when they picked them. I think Caleb Johnson in the 3rd round was a no-brainer. I think that Jack Sawyer in the 4th round was the perfect spot if you were going to address edge rusher. Not too high, not too low. As I said on Pittsburgh Standard Time, that was in the Goldilocks region. It was just right of when you anything higher than that, you're like, you got to get him on the field more. Anything lower than that, you're like, is he even going to get in the rotation? So I felt that was really good. It's crazy how some people who talk about the Steelers, like a certain person that, has an afternoon radio show in Pittsburgh that a lot of people like to listen to, that you can actually hear on Mondays on the Fan First Sports Network on another affiliate, likes to, it's almost like they expect that the only thing you're drafting in the draft is starters. Did the Steelers draft Will Howard in the 6th round to be a starter? No. If he is one, that's great. So when you're looking at the roles that you're having these players fill in, it makes me feel even better about it. And what I like specifically about the 2 7th round picks is they added players that have a chance to grab a roster spot. If they would have added a wide receiver, I don't know if there would have been room for him for a 7th round wide receiver. So they added players there that bring special teams values and can actually find their way on the bottom of the 53-man roster if they at least have a path. So I feel like that they've kind of checked a lot of boxes with this draft for me.
I agree. And what we've done for the last few years and on the Steelers preview after the draft is what we do is we start, I think one year we did backwards. We're just doing a numerical order this year. We are going to start one player, 1st round pick. Well, obviously we won't have a 2nd round pick, but a 3rd round pick. And we're just going to start breaking down this player and what we think. What are their expectations? Stuff like that. And so we're starting with Derrick Harmon. Obviously, by now, all Steeler fans have heard about his, I would call it a tragic story, as his mom passed away shortly after he found out he was selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you haven't heard the story, go and do your homework, how he went to Michigan State and left before his senior season. But ultimately, a lot of folks out there said that Derrick Harmon was kind of a one-year wonder so far because he didn't produce that well at Michigan State, but he did produce at Oregon. So I'm going to throw it to Dave first. Dave, from him entering the NFL perspective, do you have any concerns about the fact that he really only had one really solid year of production at Oregon?
Yeah. You can't just dismiss it. Right. You can't. There's plenty of times you could look at different positions and say, oh, well, they really didn't have a lot of great work. It's really only one good year. My goodness, you could say that about when the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett. But you could also say that about Joe Burrow. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So you can't dismiss it, but it doesn't define exactly the player he's going to be either. Honestly, he was asked to play a different role in Oregon. He slimmed down. He wasn't just playing nose tackle, which goes to show me that maybe he's just not a nose tackle. And that's why the Steelers aren't planning on having him start off there with them, that they have him more as a defensive tackle or defensive end, even, exactly how they're going to fit that in there. Remember, that's a 3-4 defensive end, which is basically almost the same thing as a defensive tackle.
Right.
So to me, you could say that, but sometimes a change of scenery is good. So, sometimes actually being further away from everything could be helpful. It was still Big Ten football, right? I guess, because Oregon's in the Big Ten, but the amount of pressures and everything that he got during that 1 year, you can't just dismiss that and say he only did it for 1 year. That you still have to stand up and look at what he did while he was there.
All right, Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
A great thing about being a part of the Fans First Sports Network is we have analysts all over that represent these different schools. And I've got a good buddy at the Michigan State Insiders Podcast Network. His name's Aiden Champion, and Aiden was telling me that they really felt like losing Harmon was not a good thing. They hated to lose that guy, but it was a completely different defensive system there as well. So when he goes over to, like Dave said, when he goes over to Oregon, he had a chance to do different things and had a chance to showcase himself. As far as, and you did mention the tragedy, I just want to go ahead and mention that as well. It's also the way it was handled, the way the Steelers handled it, the way that the fans have rallied around him, the way that he was on his way to the hospital to see his mom, and the fact that his mom got a chance to find out that he was drafted is a triumph of the human spirit as well. So that is a very special thing that she got to know that her son is an NFL first round pick. So that's a special thing as well. I really think that when you, in this NIL era though, when you get a chance to move around, some move because they're free agents, some move because it's a better position for them, and some move because there is money thrown at them in a different manner. What's happening here, I really don't know. I think it was a change of scenery, a change of system that helped Harmon. I don't care if it's 1 year. Intangibles are intangibles. And what he did last year, and like Dave said, he played Ohio State twice last year. Actually, no, he played Ohio State once last year, and he had an opportunity to play in the playoffs as well. Actually, I'm sorry, they did play twice.
They did.
I just screwed that up. So yeah, he played them twice last year. He's gone up against Michigan. He's gone up against like all these great teams. Went up against Penn State as well, who has a pretty nice offense. And you know what? He really turned some heads to become a first round pick, and the Steelers liked what he saw. I think that when you look at it, the Steelers probably had their choice of two guys. I think their top two picks, in my mind, it wasn't Graham and it wasn't Nolan. I really think they liked Grant, and I think they liked Harmon here. So I like what they did here, and I think he gets a great opportunity.
A little bit of input here. I didn't know this. I saw a clip on Twitter. Jerry Dulac, our buddy Jerry Bear from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, he was on the Rich Eisen show. This was right after the draft. And I had saved it in my bookmarks on Twitter, and I finally got a chance to go watch, and he provided some more detail that, he said that after the draft pick was made and they selected Harmon, he was talking to this media, and he goes, look, when I'm done here, I have to go because my mom's on life support. And that's how they found out about it. So the Steelers, normally they have their first round pick in town, and it's like this ticker tape parade where they're taking pictures with Franco at the airport, and they're going to Permane Brothers, and they're filming them go across the bridge as they see the city and all this stuff. He said, well, they didn't do that for respect out of him and what's going on in his life. But he said Derrick Harmon made it a point to say, I am going to show up and I am going to be there. I didn't know this. His flight was, I guess, delayed or canceled. So he and a buddy, I guess, got into a car and they drove 5 hours from Detroit to Pittsburgh, and they were there, and there were a couple photos taken, but they didn't do all the pomp and circumstance. I'm not sure if they'll probably have him in front of the media for rookie minicamp, whenever that is. I don't think they've announced those dates yet.
Today in Asked and Answered, Bob Labriola on Steelers.com said the 9th to the 11th.
Oh, cool.
So the Steelers didn't announce it, but I don't know if Labs was supposed to put that out there. But I meant to tell you that today, and then I forgot about it till just now.
That's
So
okay.
That's 8 days.
Yeah. So I'm sure that Derrick Harmon will be in front of the media and answering some questions, because normally that's all part of the process. They have the pictures of Art Rooney and the first round pick with their jersey and all that stuff. Like, he didn't get that. And understandably so. The Steelers basically told him, we're not trying to have you do anything that you're not ready for. It's a very traumatic moment. So, the only other question I want to ask you guys before we talk about actual on-field production is, there was the report that there was an MRI that showed a partially torn rotator cuff in one of his shoulders. Now, just so everyone out there knows, a partially torn rotator cuff, which there are a lot of muscles that are rotator cuff muscles. It's not just one. I think there's 6 total, not to be nerd out on anyone, but there's 6 total muscles that encapsulate the shoulder girdle and the shoulder stability muscles. Those are called the rotator cuffs. But when you're talking about this and you hear that there's a partially torn rotator cuff, are you thinking Troy Falatanu 2.0, or do you think, okay, they're going to figure this out and they'll be fine? Dave, I'll start with you.
I mean, we're Steelers fans. That's happened last year. You can't dismiss it. You can't not have it creep into your mind. But we also don't know the extent of the tear, right? Right, Jeff? Because a partial tear could just be wee little teeny tiny. Start to see something.
It's like the word spring
hanging on. Yeah. And if the Steelers said they were confident with their medicals, I would have to believe that it's on the first end of the spectrum of the little teeny tiny tear more than it would be towards the, oh my goodness, it's barely holding on from being a full tear.
Right.
So that's based on just what the Steelers said. Now, do you always trust what the Steelers say, especially when it comes to draft season and everything else? So I can't say that it's not a concern. That's going to be kind of like with Troy Falatanu last year. I'm not worrying about it until it's a problem.
True. All right, Brian, what about you, the medical stuff?
It makes me wonder if this is something that he's already planning at this point in January to have cleaned up. And is this something that you do go ahead and clean up, or you wait until it's worse? I'm asking for a friend.
I don't think you would have a rotator cuff surgery that's going to shelf you for a while.
Okay.
Even if it's to just fix a partial tear. I mean, it's not as invasive as it once was. I think Kevin Smith talked about how he had his labrum repaired in college, and if it felt like he was in a full body cast or something like that. So I don't think it's, as crazy, but sometimes that stuff can heal itself too. Like Dave said, if it's as he put it, a teeny tiny tear, then the body will heal itself. And it's just a matter of, is he getting the rest? Is he doing the physical therapy? So keeping an eye on like the pictures and videos they put out from OTAs, if he's in attendance, what's he doing? If he's doing certain lifts, certain movements, okay, maybe he's good to go. We'll see. But that's concerning though. You can't be not concerned when you find out the first round draft pick has a partially torn rotator cuff. So.
I think one of my chief concerns, and I almost hate to bring it up because he is a player of character, but what did he mean by, I have no idea what you're talking about with this? Was this not, you would think this was shared with him? Or is this something that that the doctors at the combines, they found there, but it was not relayed to him? I don't know.
Did he say he didn't know what they were talking about, or did he say he didn't know that was even a thing because he's never even had a problem with his shoulder? I can't remember. I'm asking because I don't know.
I don't know either
for sure, and I don't want to misquote it and be like that.
Go back to last year, Peyton Wilson. Everyone's like, the dude doesn't have any ACLs, and he's talked about this after he was drafted with Steelers.com. He said, I don't know where this stuff came from. He said, I've been playing football. I've never had any major injuries. It's very much sounded like a Hines Ward situation where when Hines Ward was young, he fell off his bike or something, and he might have torn his rotator cuff, or not his rotator cuff. Gosh, I needed ACL. Yeah. And he didn't even know that it was torn. He kept on playing. He played all through college at Georgia. And then they're like, oh, you have a torn ACL, or you're missing one. He's like, that hasn't slowed me down yet. And he never did anything about it.
That was the reaction that it was. Is like, really? I haven't had any problems with my shoulder. Why are you saying there's an issue with my shoulder?
And I can only imagine when you go under an MRI for a football player, defensive lineman, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff. I'm sure you're looking at the knees and the ankles and the hips and all the shoulders, elbows, all of it. They're probably, we got a lot of scar tissue here. I'm not sure what that is. It's kind of like some gray matter. That could be a question mark. And that's why teams want to do their own, they bring them in for their own medicals. And so I'm sure the Steelers had their guys have him in an MRI and doing all that stuff. I don't know, Brian.
Well, I'll just say this. If they gave him an MRI on his shoulders, I hope he was in a much bigger MRI machine than what I was in when I had him done on my shoulders, because I felt like I was you ever watched the movie The Incredibles? When Mr. Incredible comes back, they try to get him in the tube and they can't, and just go so far and he can't go. That's how I was with the MRI. So hopefully he wasn't, you have to lay there for a long time too. And it's like, hopefully he was all right there.
My last MRI, they used the jaws of life to get me out.
Well, they have those open MRIs now. I don't know how accurate they are, where you don't go into the tube, but you actually sit there and like it scans around you. I don't know. Never had one done, just heard about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's talk about Derrick Harmon now as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the first question I have for you guys is, how do you see him fitting in within the crop of defensive linemen that are already on the roster? And so we're not going to talk about Wyatt Black. He's going to be when we talk about the 5th round selection. I want to talk about, how do you see Derrick Harmon, assuming he's healthy, with Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, and a lot of veterans that they've added to kind of battle it out for the last few spots. And we'll also include Logan Lee. Let's not forget him. Dave, how do you see Harmon fitting in with this group?
All right. For me, unless he's dealing with injury, because you can say that about any one of these draft picks or any player, we always know that if it's not an injury situation, there is only one player. I mean, obviously Cam Hayward is one of your defensive linemen. There's only one player that would be your other defensive tackle that I think could actually be ahead of Derrick Harmon, and that would be Keanu Benton if you're not using him at nose tackle. Unless the Steelers do something weird with those guys and mainly have it be them and not Harmon, I think he's going to end up being in the, I don't want to say starting lineup, because it really depends on if are you starting with 2 defensive linemen or with 3 on the very first snap of the game. He's going to be one of your top 3 guys when it comes to rotating with all that stuff. But by the time the season rolls around, because I just based on the pedigree and everything, he's better than the other options.
Yeah. Brian, what about you? How do you see him fitting in with the defensive front?
There's such a big hole. Ogunjobi's gone. Montravius Adams is, I know Montravius Adams moved around a little bit though, too. So I don't see, they brought Isaiah Loudermilk back, but I don't see them really thinking it's a win if Isaiah Loudermilk is considered getting the majority of the snaps at that defensive tackle, defensive end position, whatever you want to call it. With that being said, I really think at this point he was brought in to start right away, a la Marquise Pouncey, a la Kendrell Bell, all of those guys that came in, and as rookies, they were getting a lot of snaps. You didn't have to worry about, TJ Watt didn't have to come in and start right away. My gosh, you didn't have to start Cam Hayward right away either. In fact, it took a lot of time for Cam Hayward to warm up. But this is a spot where it's just wide open. That's why they needed to really double up like they did in the draft. Now, they did bring in guys that I have trouble pronouncing. I think I finally got Alaweke, the kid from the Patriots, down. I think I've got that name down. I still haven't really tried the Jacksonville kid yet. I really can't pronounce that name. I know it's with an O, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But I just really think that when you let a guy like Larry O go, that the writing's on the wall. Now, I'm wondering if they had some intel about Larry O's transgressions as far as PEDs go. And the wellness policy. If that was a part of the decision, that could have been, were they planning on bringing him back and they caught wind of that and said, let him go. And what did Buffalo know when they brought him in? So that's something that we don't have the answer to. But when it's open and you have a guy that you think is high pedigree, high priority, I think that at this point you would expect him to get every opportunity to have a majority of those snaps on the right side.
Well, I wanted to ask you, and Brian, you brought this up kind of, and I wanted to follow up with it. It's a situation where last year I feel like the Steelers kind of went against their norm, and not their policy, but their norm. And what I mean by that is that Troy Fautanu was given an opportunity to start, and he actually did earn it in week 2, where he actually started the game in Denver. And then that was when they were like, well, we'll move Broderick in for a series. And that was just a disaster. And then after that game is when he got injured in practice. So my question for you guys is, do you think that this is the start of a new trend for the Steelers, where it used to feel like when the Steelers drafted a player, doesn't matter where they were drafted, they're not playing much their first year. Sparingly, substitutions, special sub packages, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Do you think they're going to give Derrick Harmon every opportunity to start, Dave?
Yeah, to me, when I'm talking about him being that guy, that's where I think he's going to get to. I don't think he should. I get if they don't pencil him in there right now because he's a rookie and everything. I just think that's where he's going to be by the start of the regular season. But what I like about, even more than just Derrick Harmon, I'm looking at the Steelers' first 4 draft picks that they made. They're all players that play a position that you rotate, and therefore they can play some snaps and they can build their snaps. It's not the all or nothing like a quarterback or an offensive lineman or a starting safety or a starting corner, like those things. So to me, because of that, you can ease them in a little bit more than what you could have otherwise.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, I go back to the Kendrell Bell stuff. I know it's a completely different position. Center is a completely different position. I respect what Dave said about the rotations. But I kind of expect I think he's being earmarked, but they still have the opportunity to mask.
Yep.
They don't have to just throw him out on an island.
That's a good way to put it.
So yeah, but I think he is a high priority. If you're going to say right defensive end or right defensive tackle A, B, C, and D, Loudermilk might be your B, someone else, or Elawake might be your B, Loudermilk your C, but Harmon's got to be your A.
Yeah.
And that's the way they're going to look at it.
I was going to say, you say
like
Loudermilk, and I feel like I threw up a little bit of Loudermilk in my mouth there a little bit when you say that. Ooh, sorry.
This feels to me like Zach Frazier last year.
Yeah.
They're like, well, we have Nate Herbig. And we're like, come on, we know you're not playing Nate Herbig. Like, we know you're not playing Nate Herbig at center. We've got Isaiah Loudermilk. We've got Dean Lowry. Sure, as guys that can fill in, Derrick Harmon's going to be given every opportunity to start. It's just whether he earns it or not. So we'll see. Yeah. Now, my last question before we get to trivia is based on the entire draft, not just Derrick Harmon. And this is something I was going to ask you in the first half, and I totally forgot. If you guys had to pick right now, predict who your Joe Green Rookie of the Year award winner is from this class, or undrafted rookie free agents, got to throw them in there as well. Who's your pick? Dave, we'll start with you.
Who's my... If all goes according to plan, it should be Harmon. It should be. Because think about it. He drafted him in the first round. They didn't have another pick till the 3rd round.
Right.
But honestly, I would not be shocked one bit if it's Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, he's the other one. He is the other one for sure. Brian, what about you?
They're both going to get opportunities.
True.
So I brought this up on some other shows, and I don't know if you heard me say this. It seems like it's Caleb Johnson would be the guy because of the opportunities and the position that he's playing, even though Jaylen Warren's there. I like what Dave said, that it should be a guy like Harmon too. you just never know. I love how you said, Jeff, undrafted free agent, because I hope I'm not stealing your trivia later, but the last undrafted free agent that won the Joe Green Rookie Performance of the Year was a Super Bowl year, 2008. It was Patrick Bailey. So but when Patrick Bailey won it, everything did not go according to plan with the rookies. It didn't. You lost Rashard Mendenhall. Nothing else really worked for Limas Sweed was Limas Sweed. So you didn't have the opportunity. So I made a comment the other day that if Will Howard wins it, then you either have the next Tom Brady, and you're not worried about it. You've got a superstar, or everything went wrong with everybody else.
Yeah.
So I mean, but it seems like it's Josh. Excuse me. It seems like I just read Josh Allen on that. It seems like it's Caleb Johnson, but Derrick Harmon is probably going to be right up there. There have been Joe Green Great Performance Award winners that were the number 2 pick. I know Johnson's the number 3 here, but the number 1 pick wasn't bad when the number 2 pick won it. We can go back to Lamar Woodley, I believe, won it over Lawrence Timmons. Lawrence Timmons was good. Lamar Woodley was great. Casey Hampton didn't win it. Kendrell Bell was a Rookie of the Year on the defensive side. So he was that special. He just had a bad ankle. And so, you've seen those other guys win it. Heck, Delton Hall won it over Rod Woodson.
That's because Woodson didn't join the team till November.
Yeah, but Delton Hall also had 5 interceptions. So he played really well. When Woodson started playing, he was very good. So, you can look at it. Other guys have an opportunity to shine. If your first round pick doesn't win it, it's not the worst thing as long as they still continue to play well.
Yeah. I'm going to take Harmon. I think Harmon is, barring him getting hurt, I think he's the guy. And then I think even Caleb Johnson would need like Jaylen Warren to be banged up so that he can really shine as well. But that'll be an interesting race to keep tabs on.
Or if he's going to be the number 2, but just starts to do so well that he gets extra carries, that would be
True.
it. But yeah, who was the last first round draft pick for the Steelers to win the Joe Green Award?
It was recent.
Did Kenny Pickett win it?
It was Kenny Pickett. Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought so.
Yeah.
Kenneth Shane. So,
yeah.
All right. You ready for some trivia, Dave?
Just remember, yes, I can, but I will say, remember, the Joe Green Award doesn't always show you what kind of Steelers career you're going to have. Remember, Cam Hayward did not win it. It was Marcus Gilbert. TJ Watt did not win it. It was Juju Smith-Schuster. So,
yeah,
sometimes that's what you get. Yet Terrell Edmonds won it as a first round pick. So, yeah. We won't go any further there. Sorry.
Ready for trivia whenever you are.
Ready for trivia. All right. Pittsburgh Steelers, first round draft pick, Derrick Harmon. I know this is tough now with the transfer portal, but to me, I'm always going to count the college as the last one they attended before they were drafted.
Yep.
Will Howard's out of Ohio State, even though he played a lot more at Kansas State than he did at Ohio State. Since the merger, I'm not going to ask anything pre-merger because that's not fair. Take a shot at how many players from the University of Oregon the Steelers have drafted.
I'm going to say like 5. That might be high. I was thinking 3.
I'm going to go ahead with 7 because I can name a few of them.
Well, you're going to need to name a few. And since you got the correct number of 7, let's see how you... Well, Derrick Harmon's obviously the most recent one. That's number 1. My next question was, who was the last player drafted from Oregon by the Pittsburgh Steelers?
We talked about this on Thursday night, Brian. You actually knew it.
Yeah, it was It was David Paulson.
That's right. Okay, just making sure we had
You
that.
were recording your breaking news podcast.
Okay.
See, that's why I missed it. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's 2. Can we name the other 5?
Dennis Dixon.
Dennis Dixon.
Rashawn Sonny Harris.
Rashawn Harris in 2009. Dixon was
Sonny Harris.
No.
Throw his nickname in there. It was a part of the draft. He was drafted by that name.
Okay.
My list says Rashawn Harris, so suck it.
Oh
It's
my
Sonny.
gosh. Anyways.
Okay.
That's 4, 3, 4.
That was 4.
Okay.
Brian Hinkle.
Brian Hinkle, 1981. There's 5.
I don't know anymore.
Betty Cunningham.
Nope.
Oh, he's out of Clemson. Sorry.
Okay. I'll give you the year if you want them.
Yeah, I
The
went the
last
year.
2. You ready? Let's go with the earliest one. This was going to be hard because it's 1970. It was round 4, and he never played in the NFL.
I can't tell you.
That's running back Jim Evanson. That would have impressed me. But this one I think you might be able to get, Brian. 1997. Round 3.
Oh my gosh. Well, the other 97 round, there was a 97 round 3, which was Vrabel was one of the round 3s. Oh, offensive
Yes,
lineman.
remember Vrabel was there. He was the compensatory draft pick.
Yeah.
Highest one they've ever had. And they'll never get one that high again because you can't get him that high.
This guy was an offensive lineman, wasn't he?
You are correct. He was an offensive tackle. And he only played in 2 career games.
Gosh,
Jeff, I'm shocked you don't know it.
does he have an alliterative name?
What?
Is it Combs?
No. You can wave the white flag. It's okay if you did not know.
Give me his first name.
Paul. I don't ever remember the Steelers drafting a player named Paul.
Paul Harris. Paul, no,
It's Paul Wiggins is his name.
Paul. Okay, I remember Paul Wiggins barely. Yeah.
Very, very not so well known. So Oregon is not one of those places where the Steelers dip in the draft an awful lot. I have one last follow-up question because it's we're sticking with the first round pick. Derrick Harmon is not the only member currently on the Steelers 90-man offseason roster that went to Oregon as their last year of college. Have any idea who the other one is?
I do not.
No.
My hint is he's the only player on the roster that is listed as a heavier weight than Waya Black. And that would be offensive guard Stephen Jones.
I don't know of the existence of Stephen Jones, to be honest with you.
Oh, you will come preseason when we know all these guys when they go out there.
Yeah. Just like Tuzar Skipper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, we were ready for Duck Hodges because we had nothing else to talk about.
Yep.
Hey, Duck Hodges was a rookie minicamp invite. They turned it into a spot on the 90-man roster and eventually onto the 53. So
was
get
Tuzar.
Yeah. So, all right, let's do some final thoughts here to call it a show. Brian, I'll let you go first.
All right. We talked about this earlier when we were talking about the tragedy and the triumph of the human spirit that is the passing of the way it was handled, the passing of the mother of Derrick Harmon. Now, I want to go ahead and say this. It warmed my heart to see the guys in the war room wearing pink shirts for a guy that wasn't even on their team 24 hours. And the fact that they were wearing it in honor of his mom, Tiffany, I think that was just absolutely beautiful. This reminds me of something that goes back a long, long time ago. I got on a little bit of an eBay spree recently, and something arrived yesterday. I got it cheap. I can't believe I got it cheap. It was an autographed copy of Fighting Back by Rocky Bleier, and Rocky Bleier autographed it too. And I got back to thinking about Art Rooney sending the letter to a guy that he never ever expected to see ever again in his facility, or probably in life, when he sent that postcard that said, "Hurry back, Rock, the team needs you. Team's not doing so well, the team needs you." And the fact that I feel like the Steelers in that move, wearing those pink shirts with the emotional phrase that was on it, I just feel that they got back to being the compassionate organization that is a family. So hats off to whoever organized those t-shirts in the war room. I thought it was a beautiful thing. When I turn around and I get a chance to look into some of these other rookies, I had my wife crying the other day. My daughter brought it up to me. There was a video of Jack Sawyer on how there was another Jack Sawyer that was from Ohio that was that died at the age of 17. He had cancer. But Jack Sawyer dedicated the entire season because that kid's name was Jack Sawyer. Sent him jerseys, took him to a game, sent him videos. Always dedicates his games to the other Jack Sawyer that passed away, and it still means a lot to his family. He even in the championship game, he had JBS written on his ankle tape to honor the other Jack B. Sawyer. And so it's nice to see that you still have the character that thinks about other people that aren't famous and really playing for a higher cause. So hats off to everybody that I just mentioned. And it's nice to see some black and gold heart.
All right. Dave, final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts. Going to keep it to the subject of Derrick Harmon. Really excited that he was the pick. I'm excited that there's potential for the defensive line to be improved this year, but it is still that vicious P word that we have to throw out there that Jeff can't stand. So it's great in theory. It's something to get excited about, but you know what? Until we see it on the field a little bit in August, but really in September, do we really even have any idea how the Steelers did with where they went in the first round of this draft? But like the player, like from what I've seen so far, you don't know everything about a player, but like the person that they drafted. So I'm just excited to see what this season brings.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Great show. I appreciate it. I want to ask everyone to go check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. That website is live and up and running. It's humming in all cylinders. Make sure you go check it out multiple times a day. It's updated multiple times a day. Everything from Dave's article about the compensatory picks, Brian's article previewing the Cleveland Browns draft in terms of knowing your Steelers enemies, all of it right there at SteelCurtainNetwork.com. And be sure to check out all of our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts by searching Steel Curtain Network, and you'll get all of it. You'll get Dave's Pittsburgh Standard Time with Greg Benevent, which ran to this morning, Thursday. You get Brian's Here We Go show with Coach Kevin Smith on Monday and Bad Language on Tuesday, and my Let's Ride every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. But that does it for another Steelers preview. Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
We'll see you next week, everybody.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.